Well, hello everyone, this is Rick Passek, FlyFish Fanatic, and welcome to my time bench. Today a super successful, fun to tie, I really like tying this fly, but a fairly simple leech pattern. This has some rubber legs in it and stuff, and just gives this fly that just a little bit extra movement, and if depending on the rubber legs you use, gives it some extra flash as well. And the one I'm tying today will have some of that extra flash. I love fishing this one, especially right at dusk. I like fishing leeches in the morning and in the evening, but I like fishing leeches all the time. But my most preferred time is just like if you're in a lake where there's some hills and stuff. Just as that sun goes past the hills, there's no more direct sun, but you still got lots of light for another hour or so. This is when I love fishing leeches. So, alrighty, so let us switch it over. So today in the vise we have a Ahrex FW580 and a size 8. For the thread, I will be using some Semperfli NanoSilk in black. For the tail and body, I will be using some Semperfli Scud dubbing in black. For the head area, or the collar, let's call it, I'll be using some Semperfli Scud dubbing in Claret. For the legs, in this one, I will be using the burnt orange barred Sili Legs. I also use straight black Sili Legs that got the silver fleck in it. And I also use the straight red and silver flake as well. But today I'll be using this orange, burnt orange barred one. Okay, and then this is just a cone head. So let's get started. Just start your thread as always, back to the bend, and then I'll take I'm just going to move my mouse out of the way there. I'll take a chunk of the Scud dubbing and put it on my desk here. And I'll show you once I've got it arranged how I want it. But I'm going to take this out of the bag. And what I do is I'm pulling the Scud dubbing out in these little clumps and stacking them in the same direction. Okay. So then I will that's the 3 little clumps that I just had. I'm just going to tie this in right at the butt here. Get my magnet out of the way. I'm just going to tie it in at the butt at about the halfway point. That's about good. Nice and tight, nice and tight. Then I'm going to fold that over and go over top of that. So let me shorten my thread there. Easier control. So go over top of that. I'm nice and tight here. I'm trying to crank that down. So there's your tail. Now I can go under it as well and over just to make sure. And now that's a little too long for me. So all I do is I just pull. I want it random. Pull that dubbing out. Right. So I'll just pull it until it's the length I want it. That's about good. Okay, then I will make myself a good dubbing loop here. Now you can do split thread if you like, up to you. Whatever method you prefer. Oh, I just moved that. Hopefully that's still there. There we go, in focus. So now I just got my little dubbing loop made here. Okay, I'm gonna put my dubbing spinner in there for now. Let that hang down. And same thing, now I'm going to grab a couple, 2, 3 little packages of this Scud dubbing. Wax my thread. I'm going to take my Scud dubbing and I'm going to lay it in there. And then I'm going to spread this apart. So I'm really going to spread it apart nicely, just so I don't get any clumpies. Okay, give her a good spin. You want to use a good thread like a NanoSilk when you're doing this, because you really want to give it a good spin up here. And if you're using a inferior thread, it will break when you do that. So now I'm going to just go in here with my Velcro and a popsicle stick, and I'm just brushing out so it sticks out. This is an important part here. You want this nicely spiky. So now I'm just going to go right against that tail, and then in front, and then every time I come around, I'm just going to make sure that I stroke that back. I don't worry too much about that cone head. Just stroke all this material back. And about there, I'll stop and I'll tie this off. Make sure it's tied off really well. I'll use my scissors. By the way, these are the new scissors from Renomed, super sharp point. They're called the Stinger. Awesome little scissors. I just got them last week, I guess. Yeah, last week, I guess. So now, just going to make sure that's all tied down really well. And I take my brush again and just make sure that this is all brushed out, nothing's trapped. Okay, there we go. Nicely brushed out. So now I will take my Sili Legs, and I want them just slightly longer than the tail. Just slightly. So I'm just going to put in a, get out of the way there. Actually, I can cheat and do it this way. It's easier. Slightly longer than the tail. And tie that in, and then get that other secondary piece and bring it to this side. So now I got one on either side. And then just make sure this is cut about the same. It doesn't have to be perfect. As a matter of fact, I always find it looks better when it's wet, when some of the sizes are a little bit different. I'm just gonna zoom out so you can see the whole thing. Maybe even move the vise that way. There we go. So you can see the whole fly. Then I'll do it again, and this time I'm going to want on top a little bit longer than the tail. And I'm going to just turn this over, and I'm going to bring this up and around, and then make sure this is sitting in that bottom area there. So it's the same. Now I'll just make sure I cut that one because that one's way too long. About there. Let that hang down. So now, sometimes if it gets in your way, just use a clip or something. I've got this little magnet, and I just take these little legs, if they cooperate with me, and I just sit them on top for now and do that. Then, don't go over top of it, create another dubbing loop. Put my dubbing spinner in it again. Okay, cooperate. And this time I'm going to get the Claret. Same thing. Just going to make myself a couple, 3 little bundles here. Couple little bundles should be enough actually. So there, put that in, and then I'm gonna same thing, gonna pull that out. If you want to make the same fly but bigger, I suggest using Semperfli's boom dubbing instead. It's very similar to this, but it's much longer material. So you can see these are it's about 3/4 of an inch long or so. But if you want longer material that's going to flow more on a longer fly, use the boom dubbing. Okay, so right up against that where I just tied those in, and do 2 or 3 turns. And you want this, whatever you do here, I won't stop there. I'll give it at least 1 more turn. I want it nice and tight in there, right up against that cone head, because otherwise you end up leaving a space. And it just, I mean, it's not that it won't fish. It just, for me, it doesn't look as good, right? See, even there it wasn't enough for my taste. I'm gonna put 1 more little chunky in there. And I like doing it on a dubbing loop, because it gives it just that different different look. Well, I find that it sits nicer if it's in a dubbing loop than dubbed on, and it pulls out better. So, alrighty, put that piece in there, spread that out a little bit. Like I said, you want this nice and tight in there, just so it doesn't create that little space right behind that cone head. It's one of the reasons I don't tie a lot of cone heads. I actually really like cone heads for how they look and how they move in the water, but you got to make sure you get lots of material right in there. Otherwise, you end up it looks weird. So that's good. So now when I brush that all out, it'll blend in with that black really well. So cut that off. Take a tiny little bit of Sally Hansen's, which I've just heard, I just saw on Facebook, a bunch of people are having problems finding Sally Hansen's. So I don't know what that's about, but where the heck did I put my weight finisher? So, 2, 3, 4, good enough. Cut that off. Now I'll get my brush again and get quite aggressive here. Now, if you don't want quite as much red, just stop 1 or 2 turns more forward with the black there. But once this is wet, the black really will pop out with just these red highlights. And there is the finished one. So, like I said, there's that one there, the knife tie. Here's one with the black, straight black. Right, same thing, a little less red than this one. You can see the black a little bit more, but like I said, these are excellent flies. What I also do with them is I'll take some sticky back flat lead or whatever kind of lead you like using, and right behind the cone for the first, let's say half the shank, I'll put a layer, maybe even 2 layers on, and that'll make it undulate a little bit more, because it's going to be really front end heavy. So as you're pulling it, it'll undulate, and then as you let it sit, it'll fall down, and then it'll fall down. So it'll be almost a jig action if you put some on it. I actually do that, and then what I'll do is I'll take like my my Gulf resin. I got the orange, ambulance orange, or the ambulance the green, and I'll just put a dot right on the cone, and I know that one's weighted, right? So, alrighty. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Really deadly flies. These with these rubber legs, they just move so well, right? So, yeah, just give those a try. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll see you guys on the next tying video. Tie lines, everyone.